Hi there, I'm Ahsan Ali Shaw, and you're watching me on YouTube and Facebook Live. Today we are going to talk about boredom. It is okay to be bored and let your imagination, let your thoughts go wide. And that's our topic for discussion today. And when I say boredom, boredom is a state when you have got nothing to do or everything around you loses its interest to you, or you they those things around you, they lose their appeal, and this is a state of boredom. And when I say boredom, we don't like to be bored. We like to be occupied with the things that interest us. But recent studies and researchers have said it the otherwise. They said that the boredom is good for our creativity, for our creative life, for for our intellectual growth. It is because boredom allows you to sit within the company of yourself, to reevaluate yourself, think about your plans, and that's what boredom allows you. And contrary to boredom is busyness. When you're busy, you don't have time to think about yourself. Hey, Adrian, how are you, brother? Uh, when you are occupied, you don't have time for yourself. You don't have time to think about your plans. You are not when you are occupied. You are simply lost in the thoughts, and boredom is good for your creative life. And that's our topic for discussion today. And my guest today is Paul. He has joined us from Iceland.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Paul.
Good
Yes,
morning,
yes,
Pakistan.
yes. I think it's late at night here. I apologize that I woke you up late at night, or you are giving me time. Thank you for giving me time at such late time in the Iceland.
Well, thank you for having me. Actually,
Uh,
it's a great chance, and it's an interesting topic, and I really want
yes,
to talk about
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's an interesting topic, but the topic is boredom. How could the boredom be interesting?
It maybe it's because I remember vividly how I was brought up.
Mm-hmm,
I was very lucky.
mm-hmm,
I I was born after 9 years of my parents' marriage.
mm-hmm,
So I was very welcome
mm-hmm,
into the family. I
mm-hmm,
was the firstborn, and I was
mm-hmm,
treated like a prince. And but at the
mm-hmm,
same time, as much as I was pampered with like trips abroad to
mm-hmm,
Denmark, Scotland, and Germany or whatever,
mm-hmm,
I remember one time when I was 12, 11 or
mm-hmm,
12.
mm-hmm,
And we lived in this on this small island off the southwest coast of Iceland.
mm-hmm,
And I said to my mother,
mm-hmm,
"Mom, I'm bored,"
mm-hmm,
as I was implying that she was supposed to help me out of the boredom.
mm-hmm,
But instead of trying to point out ways for me to get out of the
mm-hmm,
boredom, she said, "Oh, that's very good.
mm-hmm,
Then you will find something interesting to do."
mm-hmm.
And I was quite.
Uh,
This is the reason why I'm talking about this, because I was so surprised. I was a
mhm,
pampered brat. I
mhm,
was used to having everything I wanted. And then
mhm,
suddenly my mother said, "Fine, you're bored. Then you will find something interesting to do and be constructive." And
mhm,
and it made me think, and it forced
mhm,
me
mhm,
to shoulder responsibility
mhm,
of taking care of business, if you like, not
mhm,
being bored.
mhm, mhm. I was talking with Ed. the other day, and he gave me a very good example, and I'm going to share it with you here and with
Hmm.
uh, the people who are joining us live. That
Hmm.
consider your mind a cup. Consider your mind a cup. Then, when it is filled, then you cannot pour anything into it. You cannot pour more things into it. The only way you can put more things into the cup or into the glass when it is empty. Boredom allows you to make your mind empty, make your cup of your mind or glass of your mind or whatever you said, make your mind empty. And when your mind is empty, then it gives you a space. It gives you space to for the new ideas to come in. You let new ideas to enter into your thoughts, into your mind, and that's how the creative process works. And I was reading some of the studies, and uh, those studies they make people to to sit in the room. There's nothing there, just a white room, just a chair, and it was a completely boring task. But the result was very interesting. Though people were bored, but they had new ideas. Then the other people, uh, the people in the other room, they have got interesting things like the laptop, computer, and internet access. Those people didn't have any access. Those people didn't have new ideas to them. On the other hand, people were in the boring state. They had new ideas. I think it's a think about your life, think about my life or your life or anyone else. We are very occupied with our lives. We You wake up in the morning, then you have breakfast or exercise, then go to work, come back home, do some chores, uh, and give your time to your spouse or your partner. Then go back to sleep. The whole cycle, this cycle continues. And the good thing about the COVID-19, it allowed people to sit at home, to give time to yourself, to be in a state
Right.
when you have got nothing to do. And that's where many spiritual healers and those people who work in this area, they think that it has the COVID-19 period, the pandemic lockdown. Uh, it allowed people to create a higher energy worldwide because they were in the company of themselves.
You, firstly,
Mhm,
I would tend to disagree with the empty
mhm.
cup theory
Okay, okay, okay.
because because um, the reason why you feel that the cup is empty is that it
Mhm,
has been full at some
mhm,
point, and the reason why it's empty, it's probably because you drank from it.
mhm, mhm,
And you drank from it because you not
mhm,
wanted to enjoy the content of the cup, wasn't it?
mhm, mhm,
So the reason why you feel the boredom of
mhm,
the empty cup
mhm,
is that you know how it feels like to be able to sip that nice
mhm,
beverage from the cup, and you
mhm,
miss that.
mhm,
So you want to refill it with the same
mhm,
content that gives you
mhm,
joy and
mhm,
fulfillment.
mhm,
So I don't agree with that being necessary for the cup to be empty. It can be
mhm.
half empty.
Yes, it can
But
be
the,
authentic.
the thing is that the response to
Mhm,
feeling that
mhm,
you're bored
mhm,
and there is an emptiness, a void in
mhm,
I would say in your mind. I think it's almost a spiritual thing or a
mhm,
mental state of mind.
mhm,
There's emptiness, this
mhm,
void that you want to fill with something that obviously, I mean, in my experience,
mhm,
is that you want to fill it with constructive um, way of thinking,
mhm,
and this is part of the pursuit of happiness, basically.
mhm,
So the reason why you're feeling
mhm,
that the cup is empty is that you
mhm,
know how it feels wonderful to be able to sip
mhm,
from the cup
mhm,
that is filled with enjoyable things that inspires you.
mhm,
So, and my point in this is that this empty cup, there's a history behind it. It was once
mhm,
filled. It was
mhm,
full,
mhm,
and it was filled with things that made you happy.
mhm,
And the reason why it was full and it made you happy was that you had done something constructive
mhm,
to enjoy from using your mind and your
mhm,
thought process
mhm,
in a constructive way so
mhm,
that life looked, it seemed to have a deeper purpose, a deeper meaning for
mhm,
you. And I keep thinking back to when I was 12 and I was
mhm,
feeling bored.
mhm,
I was born on this small island of
mhm,
14 square kilometers, and it
mhm,
wasn't a big town.
mhm,
So, but the options were obviously that I had handbooks written in Danish that had been
mhm,
ordered from Copenhagen for me to study various things about how to keep pets and all that.
mhm,
So I had the option of studying how to help deliver kittens in Danish
mhm,
or
mhm,
look after rabbits or whatever.
mhm,
I had loads of handbooks in a foreign
mhm,
language that I was privileged enough to understand because I was taught.
mhm,
I had the tools to
mhm,
fill up this cup that had been emptied with
mhm,
new ideas and using the tools that I had been given by my parents
mhm,
to be constructive in fighting that boredom, which in
mhm.
itself again is not negative. It just
Mhm.
helps you find new ways
New
of
ways.
being constructive in a different
Yes.
way this time. And
Mhm,
obviously, when you're 10 years old, you have
mhm,
different ideas of what keeps you busy and what you find interesting. And when you're 12, you have
mhm,
advanced slightly. So you want a better book on the same subject, or you
mhm,
want to have an English book on the same subject, or
mhm,
and compare notes and
mhm,
maybe learn the Latin names of various animals that
mhm,
from faraway places. I mean, this
mhm,
is what your constructive way of thinking can do
mhm.
when you discover that your cup is empty and you're feeling the
Yes.
boredom.
Mhm.
So it's
I
really your
think
responsibility, isn't
yes.
it?
I agree to some extent, and thank you for raising this point about half cup. Of course, our mind is not like a cup. It's just an example that
Hmm.
the memories you cannot your past, you cannot simply ignore them. It's just to drain out for a moment, just
Hmm.
to leave them for a moment, to create a space in your mind, a space of boredom. So new ideas, as you said, new constructive ideas, to let your new constructive ideas enter into your mind, so you could, so you could enjoy your life a bit more. I think
Totally.
we have,
Totally.
I think we have made this theory, this half empty cup theory, a much better. It's a new version of the theory now.
Well, and to be honest,
Mhm,
because I keep going back to my youth, and
mhm,
I started learning Danish when I was 8 years old from my
mhm,
mother,
mhm,
and I noticed obviously that you grow up. I mean, you
mhm,
turn 9, you turn 10, eleven,
mhm,
12, 13, 14,
mhm,
and there is always a void from
mhm,
when you evolve
mhm,
into your teens.
mhm,
You need different stimulants. You know,
mhm,
you need what made you happy when you were 9. I mean, I loved
mhm,
Dr. Dolittle, reading Dr.
mhm,
Dolittle when I was 9 or 10
mhm,
because I was into animals and I loved,
mhm,
the concept of Dr. Dolittle talking to animals, being able to
mhm,
understand them.
mhm,
But when I turned 14 and 15, that didn't do
mhm.
the trick.
Yeah,
So,
you
so,
lose the
oh,
interest. Mhm,
well, your mind has evolved, and
mhm,
your your 9-year-old
mhm,
cup, if you like,
mhm.
it
Yeah,
doesn't help you. You
yeah,
need a bigger cup.
yes,
You, you
yes.
need a different content. You need to,
Different content to keep your mind occupied. Yeah,
yes.
it raises another very good point that monotony of the same thing
Mm,
when our life becomes same, when it becomes a routine, when it becomes repetitive, then repetitive actions, when it consists of repetitive
yes.
actions, then it becomes we feel like bored. And the only thing which keeps our life interesting when there is something new, some adventurous thing, something we don't know that, even though
Mm,
we don't like it in the beginning, but uh,
no.
this is the thing that keeps our life interesting. The newness, the adventurous things, and new ideas that the learning part that we don't know it, then we are going to learn something. So the learning process is boring, but it is also interesting at the same time.
Yes, and we mustn't forget that
Hmm.
we're very dynamic creatures.
Hmm.
We're
Hmm.
so dynamic. It's just not growing up. We're just
Hmm.
dynamic,
Hmm.
and we need stimulation, and
Hmm.
and I think part of this concept of boredom is that we need the stimulation to grow and
Hmm.
expand
Hmm.
our thought process and our horizons basically.
Hmm.
And if there's no such thing as being stagnant when you're
Hmm.
reasonably intelligent,
Hmm.
you need stimulants. You need to widen your horizon and expand your
Hmm.
your your mind basically. And
Hmm.
it all sounds a bit like a cliche, but it's
Yes.
really, isn't it? It's we are dynamic. We are
Yes.
dynamic creatures.
And those new ideas, they work as a stimuli. They push you towards something to do something, and you start
Totally.
doing it. And when you know something, when you have the idea, when you know the route, when you know what you have to do, then it's a routine. It's monotony. It's boring, and that's where you get bored. When the new thing comes in, and that's where the creative process starts.
And the history keeps
Hmm.
reminding. If we go through history,
Hmm. Yes.
most of the inventors, they were
Hmm.
peculiar types of guys. They were sort
Hmm.
of a bit of oddballs, really. And I
Hmm.
mean, Newton saw the apple fall from the tree. He wasn't
Hmm.
doing much at the time. I bet he
Hmm.
was bored to death. And then he
Yeah.
realized, oh, the apple fell down. So he sort of, oh,
Yes.
that's interesting.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
because he was a dynamic personality,
Hmm.
like most of us are, he
Hmm.
wanted to explore that and and
Hmm.
and and created a theory
Yes.
which to the day is quite valid. And
Hmm.
and this is what I keep amazes me all the time, that the human mind is so dynamic that it's I mean, I've been working with people in hospital, in a mental hospital, and I've seen people transform from being very depressed and literally hopeless, and found, and they, and obviously they were bored to death in that situation, but they found a
Hmm.
way out of it
Hmm.
because it was that they themselves that discovered that there was something
Hmm.
interesting there. Nobody else could tell them that. They had to discover it themselves. that's the most interesting part, I think, that I've learned from this fight with boredom, or proclaimed fight with boredom, which I think is part of, just being dynamic and wanting to expand.
Mhm.
That's sort of
And I
my
think,
theory.
yeah, and your way of thinking, and I agree to some extent. And I think the people who learn to sit within the company of themselves, they are the most interesting people.
Hmm.
I
Yes,
think
I
those
agree.
people, yeah, who like their own company, who has managed to live within the company of themselves, and they are the most interesting. It is not easy to be in the company of yourself, and when it happens, when you start liking it, then your life becomes very interesting.
Mm. And
What do you
it's
think?
when you, yes, and when you,
Mhm,
I mean, it's I also
mhm,
went through
mhm,
a very interesting period in my life when I was about
mhm,
51, 52, and I
mhm,
felt as if I'd seen it all. Nothing really
mhm,
surprised me anymore.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I went to this doctor and I was talking about
mhm,
this, and he said,
mhm,
well, technically,
mhm,
Icelanders about 150 years ago, we didn't
mhm,
become much older than 50 or 51 or 2 years old anyway.
mhm,
So it's quite natural for me with my DNA to feel bored
mhm,
that I've lived
mhm,
it all, and it was basically time for me to go, basically.
mhm,
But since with technology and with my education and my knowledge,
mhm,
I was able to turn it into something interesting,
mhm.
and and so
I think we
yes,
have,
it was.
yeah, I think we have discussed enough. We started our discussion from the boredom, from the definition, and you gave a very good example. And we also modified the half empty, half filled cup theory, that you just have to train your past or your ideas, your old way of thinking, from your mind, so that new ideas could enter, and that's where your creativity, and that's how you manage to cope with boredom, and that's why boredom is interesting, because it allows you, for your imagination, for your creative ideas to go wide, and when you start liking the company of yourself, then your
Yes.
life becomes interesting. And would you like to add any final thoughts?
It's yeah. Well, I mean, this midlife crisis I went through
Mm-hmm,
at 51 and 52, that was an
mm-hmm,
eye opener because
mm-hmm,
it was at the time when I thought I had cancer, and I was
mm-hmm,
actually preparing because my father died when he was 55 or 54.
mm-hmm,
So I was getting ready to follow his footsteps in dying quite early on, basically. So I mean,
okay.
and I didn't have a political. I mean, it wasn't an issue for me at the time,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but when I got over that and
mm-hmm,
decided that life was worth living after 52,
mm-hmm,
I went into a new sort of chapter in my life. And
mm-hmm,
that sounds also like a cliche, but it actually is a new chapter.
mm-hmm,
And what I'm entering now, like, now I've stopped working, I'm
mm-hmm,
selling my flat and I'm leaving my country of origin,
mm-hmm,
and I'm moving to a different country with different
mm-hmm,
culture.
mm-hmm,
And I'm ready for it because I'm still that dynamic
mm-hmm,
person that
mm-hmm.
needs to fill up the cup again
Yes,
with new
new
cultures,
ideas. Uh-huh.
new people that are informing me about. I mean, I'm a theologian, so I'm very much into religion anyway.
Mm-hmm,
So I'm very excited to meet Muslim guys telling me more,
mm-hmm,
informing me
mm-hmm,
about the Muslim religion and
Mhm.
comparing it to
Mhm.
Christianity. And to me,
Mhm.
that is the ultimate, it sort of culminates my
Mhm.
life into
Mhm.
understanding the human race and what really unites us. And
Mhm.
that's very inspiring for me as a person.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Good
this is
luck.
why I think my last third part of my life is going to be the
Mhm.
most interesting one.
Mhm. I think
So,
it's very interesting leaving your country of origin, moving to new places. Good luck with
thank you.
your this your new journey. And
Thank you
thank you
very
guys for
much.
joining us for your comments. Thank you and thank you Amanda, and thank you other people for joining us for your comments. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comment box below. I'll answer it to you. Paul will get back to you as soon as we can. And thank you, Paul, for joining us from
Thank you.
Iceland, or and good day, good night, or wherever you are
Thank you.
in your part of the world.
I enjoyed it. That was, and
Yeah.
thanks for having